And hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hiker Sessions where we interview long distance hikers, day hikers, and everyone in between. I am very excited and honored to have as a guest on my show today Tim Davis, or as he's known on the trail as Fresh Ground. Fresh Ground, welcome to the show.
Hey, nobody knows my real name, just so you know.
Well, they might now, but we're going to use Fresh Ground for the show.
Yeah, please.
I think that anyone who knows a little bit about the Appalachian Trail has heard the name Fresh Ground before, or at least knows what you do for hikers out there. But for those that don't, Fresh Ground is one of the most famous and, from my research, one of the most loved trail angels on the Appalachian Trail. He's known for serving up piping hot, fresh brewed coffee and amazing fresh cooked diner style food for hikers for free, no charge to the hikers, which is just amazing. No, I was very disappointed that I didn't get a chance to meet you last year. There were certain things on the trail that I wanted to tick off. McAfee Knob, stay at Woods Hole Hostel. I met Miss Janet, but I didn't you. So I'm super excited that you agreed to come on the show today. I guess before, and I've got a million questions about Fresh Ground, but I think before we get to Fresh Ground as the trail angel, I'd like to take a step back and learn a little bit more about Tim Davis. Maybe just, have you start, where'd you grow up? What'd your early life look like?
So I'm from Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. Roanoke, Virginia is the start of the water systems up in the mountains, and it all flows down through a series of lakes and it ends up in the Roanoke River, which is just across the state line of Virginia, right on I-95. We're right next to I-95. The city is about probably 10, 12 miles from the state line of Virginia, North Carolina, and grew up there. And other than being in the military for a couple of years, I spent my life here. Yep.
Went to high school, got out of high
Yep.
School. What
Yep.
Early jobs in your life that you did maybe?
Yeah. Well, I went to college, and it just wasn't for me. Joined the Army, went to Europe, Germany for 2 years, came back and got into carpentry work for a couple of years, and then eventually got into industrial electrical, and that was my career. So that's pretty much it.
I've read some other articles. I know you're not shy about talking about some of the addiction issues that you had early in your life. You said that pretty much your 30s were kind of went off the cliff. What was the catalyst that got you down the wrong path?
I think it's sometimes I'm a impulsive person. I mean, anytime I choose something, I just go as far as I can with it. I mean, look, I started doing trail magic. Look where I'm at now. So I don't have a limit switch. So whatever I decide to pursue, I pursue it 100%. So it's the same way with drugs. I was curious for them. And that's kind of how you get started on drugs. A lot of times peer pressure. I wouldn't say pressure, just being around it. So that was the start of, I've always smoked weed throughout my early teens and in the 20s. And then cocaine came along, struggled with powder cocaine. And then, like I say, in the 30s, crack cocaine came along. I became a full-fledged, my brother used to say, you got crack smokers and crack addicts. I was a full-fledged crack addict. It was consumed me completely and struggled with that for years.
Obviously, it's a very negative thing. How did that impact your life, as that progressed?
There's no life. If you think about it, when you do cocaine, first of all, you chain smoke cigarettes if you're a smoker, and so that's not good for you. You don't want to eat anything. You don't want to drink any liquids, and you don't want to sleep. So it's the opposite of living. If you think about it, what does it take for your body to be refreshed? You need to sleep, eat, and drink. When you do cocaine, it does the opposite. So it's the opposite of living. You're not living a life. It's taken away from you. So it was kind of like it's just a miserable place to be. Any addiction, people are miserable about. They don't want to be there, but they've somehow or another ended up there. And, that's the reality. It could be all kinds of addictions too, not just drugs,
Did you have moments of clarity during that time where you just kind of felt hopeless?
Yeah. I would get clean maybe a year or two, and then I would slip back. You'd have a bad day or whatever. And you'd fall back into that hole again, climb out, fall back. But yeah, it was out of my control. I really thought this is what's going to kill me, is what I really believed in my heart. And it probably would have.
What about jobs and relationships? I must have done a number, I'm assuming, on both. What'd that look like?
I've never been married. I've had a couple serious girlfriends in my life, no children. But for me, I was became an electrician, and just that was my career, industrial commercial electrician. We did construction electrician, not maintenance. So we would go out on these jobs with their building projects and get hired on. You don't need to be a licensed electrician for those type of jobs. You just need to have the experience to be able to do that type of work. So that was what I did. We traveled a lot to Virginia and worked. So that's what put the money in my pocket, paid the bills.
Yeah. I know just from experience from people in my own life, they almost all of them talk about, a rock bottom or turning point in their life. Did you hit that rock bottom? And what was that turning point for you?
Turning point was my brother. I had been wrestling with a kidney stone for a few years. And one night I was really struggling with it. It was moving. So I ended up going to sleep pretty late. The next morning, doors getting knocked on. My brother had been murdered across the street from me. He lived across the street, and lost him to drugs, to crack cocaine. And that was the last time I've ever done drugs, was 15 years ago in March. Losing him was the wake-up call. When I lost him, I lost my brother. I loved him, but we didn't get along that great, but I still loved him. But I realized that if I continued down this path, I was easily going to be just like him or end up in prison. So that was the wake-up call for me.
You also mentioned, accepting Jesus, bringing God into your life, and becoming a Christian had a big impact.
Yes.
Did those all happen simultaneously?
No, actually, this is the funny part. I became a Christian, and God miraculously took my addiction away. I woke up, I went to a revival, got baptized. I woke up the next day, and I realized I did not have an addiction. He miraculously took it away from me. And I still relapse many times after that moment. And each time God would bring me back, restore me. And I found that he was calling me to do different things. I went to different places. Little by little, I had these amazing adventures. If anybody wants more detail, you can go to that YouTube channel where I have Fresh Ground 4883. And that tells more detailed story about my process of being grown by God into a mature Christian. So I made a lot of mistakes early on, and still make a few mistakes here and there, but for the most part, no major mistakes now. We've learned how to keep the drugs in check. You just got to let it go. You got to turn it over to him, and just start letting God kind of steer your life. And this is what he led me to, was the Leapfrog Café. The calling for me was I kept getting woke up at night after hiking the trail in 2012. I got off at Irwin with a pinched nerve. I looked like this when I got off. And then that fall, me and my dog went out and we would section hike a little bit. Kept getting woke up. Feed hikers was in my heart, just in my heart. Feed hikers, feed hikers, feed hikers. Not every night, but for many nights, I woke up at 12, 1, 2 in the morning. And I'd walk outside and take my dog for a walk. And so finally I went to work one day, and I had a young lady I worked with, and I said, Beth, can I tell you something? And I told her, and she goes, well, just go do it. So I went down to Georgia, and I had a Toyota Camry. I had a stove and 2 pots. One pot I boiled water in for coffee, and one I had chicken noodle soup. And that was at Woody Gap, and that was in 2013. I started March 1st in 2013, and that was I didn't know it at the time, but that was the start of the Leapfrog Cafe.
On your attempted through hike in 2012, did you meet anyone doing trail magic that maybe had any influence?
A cup of water. I started May 15th. I didn't get a cup of water. I remember walking by campsites thinking maybe they'll look at me and give me something, but no, people would look the other way. We were at I was with people that were starting late. So we were just focused on trying to catch up, Yeah.
I've experienced that, people looking the other way.
Yeah,
so I know what you're talking about. How did the Appalachian Trail enter your life? Did you grow up? I knew you grew up in North Carolina.
No.
Did you do hiking or anything? Or
no,
where did that come
across
from?
the street, I had one of my best friends was named Cookie Man. We were in his man cave behind his house, his shed, watching TV. And on PBS, they had this special on the Appalachian Trail. It was 2 friends, I think it was 2 friends that made this video in 2 parts. And we watched it. And this was right after my brother was murdered. And I thought, I want to do something in his memory. And I didn't go that next year. I didn't do it then. It was 2 years later when I decided to pursue. But that's when the seed was planted, when I saw the documentary.
Yeah. So, and you probably Yeah, your story is similar in the fact that I think a lot of people see, watch a walk in the woods or read the book, and they're like, "Well, let me just get a few of this gear and I'll go do it."
Yeah, yeah.
How prepared were you for that first through hike?
No, that's why I ended up with a pinched nerve, ultralight pack. I had the right idea, but I couldn't keep the gear, the weight out of the pack. So I put so much pressure on my neck, it just pinched a nerve. And so, yeah, I'd never set out to do something where I couldn't do it. So this was very disappointing for me and frustrating. So I did come back out after I got hurt and helped my trail family all the way up to Daleville. And so, yeah, I did a little bit of that. Was kind of maybe the precursor to the Leapfrog Cafe.
What was your expectation? I know you said you wanted to kind of do the hike in memory of your brother's passing. I know a lot of people start out doing that. Like, what do you think was going to be like out there for not ever having like hiked or long distance hiked much?
I've always grown up in the woods, so I was very comfortable. I've always been a hunter, fisherman. I've always been by myself a lot in the woods, so I'm always comfortable. I've been well trained to be in the woods. Even as a little child, I was 4 years old. We lived next to the woods. I'd go hang out for hours by myself there. I was the youngest child. My other two sisters and brother had already went to school, so I went in fifth of kindergarten. So I was 5 years old. So, before then, I'd stay by myself in the woods a lot. Very comfortable there.
It sounds like you did make friends out there, though. You said you were part of a tramley, kind of the late starter group. Yeah.
If you go on the Appalachian Trail, or any trail for that matter, and you are out there giving it your all, you will bond with the people that are there with you, because it's a shared suffering, if you want to call that. It's a shared destination. You're on the journey together. You lean on each other. You're stronger as a group than you are as individuals. So that bonding, that's why I used to show videos and movies early on, and I found that if you do that, you interfere with that bonding that hikers have when they first start. You want them to bond, so I don't want to interfere with that. So 13 years of doing this, I've really gotten into the psychology of a hiker pretty good, and figured out, how I can promote them, how I can, what I should do, what I shouldn't do.
You talk about that you really have a good idea on the psychology of a hiker now, a thru hiker. How many thru hikers, and don't be modest here, because I've read some people's quotes and things about you. How many thru hikers do you think you stopped from ending their hike just by having chats with you?
I don't even want to guess, because for me, I live in the moment, and I'm always looking for what's next. And if you look face forward like that, it doesn't matter. You just give it your best. I don't count. I don't worry about this. I take the donations that come in and I use them in the best way possible. So I'm always a forward facing kind of person, if that makes sense. Not trying to not answer your question, but that's not how my brain works.
Yeah, no, I did. That's a great answer, and I agree with you. How did you get the trail name? So on your 2012 hike, did you get the trail name Fresh Ground?
Yes, my brother. I left my dog and my car with my mom in Virginia at the time. My brother picked me up. He lived in Wilmington, North Carolina. We drove down, and I kept saying, "Stop at this store, stop at this store." And he said, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, they grind the beans and then brew it. It's freshly ground." He goes, "Well, that's your trail name. You're hiking fresh ground, and you like fresh ground." And I was like, "Okay, I'll take that." And then the Leapfrog Cafe was named by the hikers. So when I started feeding hikers, and they wouldn't let me take my name out of it, I just wanted to call it the Leapfrog Cafe. And they were like, no, it has to be and they were adamant, has to be the Fresh Ground Leapfrog Cafe. And so we own the domain, but there is a Fresh Ground singing group, and there's a Leapfrog Cafe in Australia. So, I guess we don't have a competition now for the domain.
Yeah, you talked about you'd be woken up at 1, 2 in the morning with this voice inside your head, feed the hikers, feed the hikers. So I guess that's kind of what inspired you to do it. What was your goal? What were you hoping to get out of it? Or was it just as simple as, I just want to feed hikers?
Really believe, and I'm sharing my faith a little bit here. I'm not trying to make anybody uncomfortable, but I really believe that God wants you to be his child, not to be his puppet. So I think God gives us prompts, and you either can follow them and let it open up and figure it out and be a child of God, or you can just sit and wait and never nothing happens. So I think when I heard Beth, the lady at work, say, "Just go do it," that was the second part I needed to hear. So when I went down, I will tell you this part, when I went down and set up the first week, I remember I had a lesbian couple come in, and I fed them. And that night I was in my tent. Back then I slept in a tent. And And I was like, Lord, what about people of different lifestyles? And he really, in my heart, said, love them all. So the motto for a long time was feed them and love them. Doesn't matter who you are, what you believe, your lifestyle. That's your free will to choose. My job was just to feed them and love them. And it still is.
It sounds like I know a lot of the people that I met doing trail magic along the trail seem to enjoy doing the trail magic more than I enjoyed eating the food. Honestly, because and it seems like you're that
Yeah.
way too. I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like it really fills your soul. Is that the case? I mean, that's how it is obvious. It seems
It's
to
a
me.
calling. It's a calling for me. I feel like I've been called. I've been trained well. As a kid, I was always been in the woods. I always call my mom now and say, I'm still out in the woods, Mom. And she goes, yep, you were my one child that hung out in the woods. So still doing that. I'm ADHD and OCD. So these in society might be like negatives, but when you run a cafe, I never met a stranger. And my OCD makes sure that we keep everything clean and in order. And I live in a van, so you kind of have to keep it that way. But so those negatives in society are positives when it comes to trail magic for me. And I usually come out when it's cold, when it's most people don't want to be out there, and I love the cold. And I have a fire pit I bring off the roof. I have a tarp I can put up and for the rain or snow or sun if it's really hot. So I can set up a rest stop for them, and they can come in. I mean, you're getting everything. What would a hiker want? They want something to eat, something to drink. If it's hot, something cold to drink. If it's cold, something hot to drink. Give me a fire pit so that you're not losing your heat while you're eating and stopping. Your social time, when they come in, they relax and they just bond really well, talking. And that's my thing, is to get them talking and then cook them some really good food. And I used to do all kinds of like cakes and chips and all. Now I only do home style meals and fruit, and I will have a jug of Gatorade. But that's it. I've kind of tried to keep it less processed food and more natural stuff.
Yeah, and people appreciate that a lot. I know my diet, or any through hiker you talk to, their diet's not the best on the trail. So the more natural stuff you can do in it, and it sounds like you're not just a fair weather trail angel. So I do appreciate that. Now, you said you started in 2013 with just a pot and a couple of pots and a stove. What's been the transformation of your setup from then until like when you were out there on the trail? What's that look like? I'm assuming it's got to be vast, but what's that look like?
So I was in a Toyota Camry when I first started, and I had my dog with me. So she'd get the passenger seat, I'd get the driver's seat. The rear seat and also the trunk of the car were full. We slowly but surely grew. It's like getting a big pack. When you start hiking, you get that 60-liter, 65-liter pack, and you fill it up, right? Same thing. We had the car pack, and that worked until 2018. 2018 is the first year that I went all the way to did all 14 states and summited Katahdin and did trail magic at the Katahdin sign. So that was kind of like a breakthrough year when I prided myself on never asking for $1. And that was when I had a moment one night where I realized that I was only hurting the hikers. I needed to ask if I was going to go any farther. It was only going to grow this far. If I was going to go any bigger, I had to ask. So I did. And so that's when it started growing. 2019, the van came into effect. So I have a bed in the back of the van, and I try to set up at trailheads now where there's leave no trace. It's easy. You have a hard base. So once I leave, and I usually once I get started, I don't stay in the same spot a long time. I tend to, once I find out where the groups are, I'll set up and strategically feed like a group of 6 or 8, take it down, move forward or backwards, and feed another group. So that way I'm not sitting in one spot for days and days.
How do you finance? So you said 2019 was a pivotal year. How do you finance? Because everything's free for the hikers.
Just so everybody knows, I am a 501c3 nonprofit, but you have different categories. I'm a 990 category, meaning me and my 2 board members cannot draw a salary off of their donations. We have to pay our own way. So I have to work, pay my bills here at home, and pay my food and all when I'm here. Not feeding. And I feed about 8 months out of the year now, 7 to 8. This year might be 7 because of the used to go out west, but we're finding it's just not worth it. So I will do a fundraiser in January. I usually go to the Florida Trail, and while I'm on the Florida Trail, we start the fundraiser for Nobo season, and that usually runs to the middle of February, and then I go down to Georgia and start feeding. I make an agreement that I will do 12 weeks. So this year was February 13th through May 10th. So I did 12 weeks. And then so you budget your money to last that long. We've had a really, really generous donor who donates such a large amount in May, the last 2 years, it covers all of Sobo season. So I'm actually funded now for the most part. Sobo season, we don't, refuse donations. We could still use more. Could be the difference between a hot dog and a hamburger, a cheeseburger. But right now we're tentatively funded to do minimal. We can do minimal for the rest of the year. So that's it. And mainly there are past hikers that are donating and individuals that know what I do.
That's awesome. And I've got all your links. And for anybody watching, in the show notes, if anybody's interested in donating, you can just scroll down to the show notes and check that out. Yeah, you mentioned you kind of, obviously, hence the name Leapfrog, you make your way up the trail. Yes. How long do you stay in an area? Like 1-2 days? How long do you usually stay at one spot?
So my pattern now is when I start in February, I usually do 2 to 3 weeks in Georgia, based on it's a numbers thing is what I'm looking for. So I'm a one-man show. So when I start out, I want to make sure I'm not overwhelmed with numbers. So I want to make sure that, honestly, when I set up, I'd like to feed 8 to 10 people per meal early on. Early on, you might feed 15 or 20. You never know. But once I get to a point where the numbers are too many for me to handle, that's a sure sign for me to move forward. Does that make sense? Once I usually pick an engine and a caboose. Engine is somebody that's pretty consistently doing big miles, and caboose will be right at the end of the numbers where I'm not comfortable feeding behind them because it's just too many. And understand, as they go north, we lose a few, but their appetites increase. So you might be feeding 8 a meal, which is like feeding 16 in the South in Georgia. But when they get up to, Northern Virginia, it's 8 people is like feeding 16. Their appetites double,
Yeah, no, I totally get that. You mentioned 1 year you made it all the way to Maine. Typically, how far north do you make it on the Nobo season?
It's better. What I found is I'm obsessed with being efficient. So I think it's more efficient being based in Northeast North Carolina to just mainly make it up to maybe Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania. So time-wise, that usually works out. This time I went up to right near Port Clinton and just worked my way back south. I wanted to feed everybody one more time before I got off. This was a different year. I had a broke arm. You remember the van, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a big knot right there. But I was changing the brakes and the van fell on my arm, fell off the bottle jack on my arm. So it was really hard. This is the hardest year physically I've ever had. But I reached out to the hikers and they were just unbelievably supportive. The community. So I'd ask, could y'all wash dishes? Oh, yeah, they jump right on. They will never not do anything you ask them. You have to stop them sometimes because they try to do too much. And it was a beautiful thing. Probably will lean more on letting hikers help me more in the future as I get older. I'm 61 now, so it's getting a little bit harder.
You and I talked a little offline about the community and just how great the community around the Appalachian Trail is. At this point, you've been doing it since 2013. Mm-hmm. Are you still amazed at the outpouring of love and support that you get from the community along the Appalachian Trail?
Yeah, it's amazing. I've been given a position of trust. I've earned my trust as the years went on, but we've grown, and it's gotten to the point where, we try to give back. We're getting more than what we need, but we try to give back to other trail angels, and we try to look for hikers that have special needs or struggling here or there. You remember you asked me about had I turned on hikers. So, every year I might pick 1 or 2 hikers that look like they might need a little bit extra, a piece of gear, or take them into town, give them a good meal, pay for a motel room, just little small things. Because sometimes that's all it takes, isn't it? Just that little bit to take a bad day and turn it into a good day. Well, this year, 6-pack hikers, Remy, the father, hurt his knee right before Dragon's Tooth, I think. And then he hiked in. I was on the Blue Ridge Parkway. I was coming back to Daleville, and I randomly made a phone call to see how they were doing. And the mom, Sally Ann, said, "Oh, you won't, he just hurt his knee. We don't know what we're going to do." And I'm like, "Well, listen, I'll run into Daleville. I grabbed some braces, a couple braces, went and showed up right at McAfee, brought them all some 3 Little Pigs sandwiches, and got that brace on his knee." So, sometimes being in the right spot at the right time, it just because we are a community. We are a very good community that looks out for each other. So that's the beauty when you have that timing works out just right. And I'm very flexible about that. I don't commit to a certain schedule, a certain day. I'm going to be here, here, here. I leave it open. I know it frustrates some people because they want to come hang out, but I'm out there for the hikers. That's the main thing, you know.
I know hikers after they finish the AT or even long section hikes, they'll say, "Well, this was my favorite view," or "This was my, favorite trail town." Do you have favorite setup spots along the way that you like better than others?
I love Fontana Dam. It takes good pictures. The guys at TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, they run that place down there, and they know me well, and they give me. And I've always tried to be very respectful of their property. I don't know, that tends to work really well for me. You also, when you get up into Northern Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, it's about time to let go and say goodbye. So then I'm able to kind of be a little more creative with the meals because I cook the same things over and over again. But then I'll break out something a little fancy or make it a little bit more special. I remember Frankenstein was one day he had caught norovirus and couldn't get over it. He was one of those few that just couldn't shake it for about 2 weeks. And his turned into something deadly. I mean, where his kidneys were failing. So he was having to build himself back up one day. And I remember we came out of Jennings Creek. I fed him. And then he told me that's when he first got his appetite back a little bit. But then I went forward up on the parkway and caught him for lunch. And you could tell this is a situation where I could really benefit them up here. And they had to do some climbing that day, but that extra lunch, just hot dog lunch, I forgot what it was. But that little extra, he needed that little booster. So you kind of got to look at the people you've been put in care of and make that judgment call. And some need a little bit more some days. Some you don't have to worry about. But I developed this friendship with them, and they're my kids. Well, they're out there. I think of them as my kids. It's my responsibility. And no matter how old they are, they're still my kids. And I'm going to take care of my kids.
Do the things on your, for lack of a better term, menu that it's like the favorite food that all the hikers like? Are there things that people like, oh, this is the best thing you make? What do you find are the favorites?
Blueberry pancakes, hands down, number one pick. My grilled cheese is probably number two, and then it can go any direction. But those are the two main things that I'm known for. I do it a little different. I don't make a nice fluffy pancake. Mine's a crispy, and my grilled cheese, I actually melt the cheese in the pan, make toast, put it down, and then fold it together after the cheese is melted in the pan. So it's different. And I use Kerrygold butter, which is the standard is pretty high. I used to cook as cheap as I could and feed as many as I could. And one day I was making a grilled cheese, and the Walmart bread looked like it was made out of sawdust. It literally looked like sawdust. And I thought, this is not me. I'm not proud of this. So I flipped it and I said, let's buy the best ingredients. And then so now I buy Wright hickory smoked bacon, by 3 pounds at a time. I do deep fry my bacon. I'm known for that, deep fried bacon. I do blueberry pancakes. I can also do apple cinnamon or banana. And breakfast is always pancakes, eggs with cheese and butter added. It's also, I can deep fry potatoes and then deep fried bacon. And then you have coffee, orange juice, Gatorade, all the stuff that goes with that too.
Yeah. I'm really bummed that I didn't run into you last year now. Those banana pancakes sound pretty good. How, a lot of people, it's kind of surprised me a little bit, but a lot of the people that I ran into when I was hiking had never backpacked or hiked before, and surely had never heard of trail angels. How do people react when they've been hiking for a few days and they come upon you? And do you have any memorable stories from first interactions, any that come to top of mind?
I was at Jennings Creek a couple of years ago in Sobo season, and I saw a husband and wife came out of the woods, and she was just crying. And I walked up to him. I said, "What can I do? What can I do?" And he goes, "It's okay. She's just excited to see you." A lot of people tell me now, because I've been doing this so long, that I've developed this reputation, that it would make their hike be more complete to meet me and be served at the cafe. I'm a one-man show. I wish I could feed everybody, but it's just not the way I feed. I try to create a memory. So I'm trying to put everything I can into this rest stop, and it's just not sustainable for me to run that year round or to run it for a long, long time. And it's expensive. My setups tend to be, I buy the best ingredients. And so I budget so much a week, and then I set up for the few. And then anybody that shows up, day hikers, section hiker, through hiker, they're all welcome. Everybody, homeless people. We've had highway workers just walking by, construction workers, bicyclists come by, pull in. So it's all about community, though. It's all about, I'm the hub, and then the community comes in, and you just try to make sure that they're loved and taken care of.
That's really awesome.
But there's also a point that the food is the first thing. The second thing you got to do is you got to look at the hiker and see where they're at and do they need encouragement? Do they need gear? You got to get them talking and get them to open up, because through hikers, believe it or not, are very humble about asking for things. Like if I got a thing of strawberries on the table, if they're closed, they won't eat them. If you open them up, they'll eat them, but they won't eat them if they're closed. That's pretty amazing. They're very respectful. And I just found that, I can make people eat more than they want to eat. And that's just a little psychology there. I have little tricks that I can get them to eat more than they want. My job is to stretch their bellies out and make sure they eat more than they think they can eat. And the goal is to feed them and love them, but also make sure they take whatever they want. I always carry fruit. So try to get them to take stuff with them too.
Yeah. I found on my hike last year that I really found that the best parts of humanity I found out there on the trail: honesty, everybody equal, compared to back in what I call regular life. Do you see that as well? You're out there more than I am. Is that what your kind of experience is?
The best utopian society I've found in the world so far. Yeah. I think distance hiking pushes you beyond normal limits. So you've never physically done anything that was more challenging, emotionally and mentally too, right? I mean, for some people it's a little easier, but for most of us, it's older people, it's even harder, because younger people can recuperate really fast. Us older folks, your recuperation is a little harder, a little more physical. But I remember I used to sit down sometimes and play this game, and we would ask everybody, what their job was. Try to guess what the person's job was. And it was amazing. You would see, CEOs sit next to people who were pretty much homeless before they started hiking, and they got along great. When you take away the social statuses, and we're all on an equal slate, and we're all out there, and you realize that it's better to help each other. So that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? To be a part of that. And also for me, I'm accepted because I live out there with the hikers. So they accept me as one of y'all, which is hard to do. If you're not pushing the miles out, if you try to yellow blaze, they're not going to accept you. But if you go out there and you put the effort in, you will be accepted. So
you're out there all the time. I'm curious, what's a typical day look like for you? You mentioned your van. You sleep in your van or in a hammock?
I do sleep in the van. If it's too hot, I'll sleep in a hammock outside. I usually get up about 4:30 or 5. I do a routine inside the van. I make my coffee, a French press inside the van. Usually, first thing I do is take my medicine. I'm old. I need it. And then I read. I'm a follower of Jesus, so I read 3 chapters a day in the Bible. Try to, that's me. That grounds me, and it sets the pace for the day. I listen to some good music. And then when I step out of that van with my coffee, I put my bone conductors headphones in, and I'll set the cafe up. Usually I start setting up about 5:30, 5:45. Takes me about 30 to 45 minutes to get everything set up and cooked, and then I'm ready to feed. So usually about 6:15, 6:30. I should say more like 6 to 6:15. I'm ready to take hikers on then. And I pretty much handle them. If they don't all come in at one time, I can handle them pretty easy. Yeah.
Now that sounds like a great day right there.
You're more than welcome to come, call me and come down to a guest appearance. I know you said you're coming down to Virginia, but next week I'm going down to help my dentist through the Smokies.
Wow, that's awesome. That's the way to slack pack right there with fresh ground. You mentioned Colin, and I on my through hike last year, I was really torn a lot of times about technology. I'd love to get your thoughts on technology. Now, you started this 12 years ago or so. So even, it seems like technology's been around forever, but it hasn't been. What's your thoughts on technology with regards to you, in that now people, I read that some people almost try to look for you, and maybe when they happen upon you, it's not as big a surprise because they know where you are. Like, what's your thoughts on that now?
So when I first started in the Toyota Camry, I used to have a stack of maps under my driver's seat. So every state, I'd pull out that state and go through the back roads. And that was how I found the trail. And it was aggravating, to be honest with you. But that's how I learned the trail. And then when I hiked, I had AWOL. That's what I use, AWOL. And then I remember one year I hiked with Stamps, my buddy Stamps, and he had Far Out. And I kept saying, what is that? And I'd always keep asking him. Now, when I got Far Out, if you look on Far Out, you can pull up a trailhead, scroll down, and it says show. I have an iPhone, so it's show on Apple Maps. Hit that button, and I drive right to that trailhead. So I don't carry maps anymore. So technology has helped me tremendously. No guesswork. I don't have to ride down a Forest Service road looking for where the trail, because it's amazing. Some of these dirt roads are hard to catch the trail crossing, but if you have Far Out, it'll drive you right to it. So for me personally, technology has been wonderful. Now, I don't let people know where I'm going to set up at. And if you are a good detective, like a lot of hikers know me, they'll look at my past pictures, or maybe I posted that morning, and they'll look at the background and they'll figure out where I'm at. So the detectives tend to catch me, but that's not always true, because I might feed the breakfast and then pack up and leave. So it's always a guessing game, but I try to get more control over where I set up at and knowing who's going to come, so I can strategically be ready for them when they show up. And I'll get phone numbers early on of a few. And then what I do is I try to get one phone number for each kind of group. And then I'll call where y'all at, who's with you, and I'll stay in touch. And that's what just happened. I had, I don't know, about 8 or 10 numbers. And then once I said goodbye to them, I delete all those numbers off, because it's time for the next season, which will be SOBO season. I'll go back and recruit numbers and get a person out of each group. Usually find out who stays on the phone the most, and who will answer the phone. So a lot of people don't keep their phone on. So, but that's my secret is to use the hikers to help me find out where everybody's at. And I do it subtly.
Yeah, that's a cool use of technology. What about, you've thrown out a few different trail names of people that you've hiked with, Stamps. It sounds like you've made some pretty good friends through the years doing this.
Every year, I just called Pippin a little while ago. She's living in Pittsburgh now. And she goes, we talk all the time. She's from Louisiana. She was freezing cold, and I had a quilt that I wasn't using, a 20-degree quilt, loaned it to her. I still haven't gotten that back. She kept that thing. But I got another one. She still wants that one now. But we become really good friends. She's like my daughter. I call her my trail daughter. And I called today, and she goes, hey, I was thinking about calling you. We haven't talked forever. Yesterday, I called Lost and Found. She's in Orange County, California. And we were talking about what jobs she should apply for, and maybe looking for at the future. I'm there to try to be their friend, mentor them if I can, encourage them. But yeah, I have, I don't know, 4 or 5 hikers every year that I ended up becoming friends with, and some just stick out, and I stay friends with them. Friends for life is what I say.
You mentioned mentoring there, and you talk about accepting God into your life, becoming a Christian, and getting you through recovery. Do you kind of use this, your cafe as like a ministry or an outreach?
Ministry, it's definitely a ministry, but I do not feel led to preach to people or teach people. My calling is to feed them and love them. If you look at my new mission statement, it's come to me, all you are weary and carry heavy burdens. That's a hiker, and I will give you rest. So I want to be a rest stop for hikers. That's my calling. But if somebody asks me, I will look at that person and say, I'll let them know my testimony, how I got to where I'm at. And sometimes I don't go too deep. I just go maybe just a little bit. Some want to know my whole story, and I'll sit there and tell them the whole story. But I don't want to push people away. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. There are people that have different beliefs, different lifestyles, and I don't want to judge them. I want them to know they're loved. So I always say that your actions should speak for, what you stand for, right? You don't need words.
Actions speak louder than words. Are you proud of yourself at this point in your life, of what you've become and what you do? It's a hard question. It's a hard question for some people to answer. How do you answer that?
When I dropped that van on myself, I wasn't proud. The doctors even next time use a jack stand. I'm like, I know now. I'm very happy with now that I've got it balanced out, it took me a while to figure out what worked for me. I was doing too much. Like I built a rack on top of the van to slack people. Oh my gosh, that just quickly was a big no-go. I've tried all kinds of things, but I've gotten to the point now where I know I can do 2 to 3 weeks in Florida in January. I can do 12 weeks no-bow season. I was trying to fit something in the summer out west, but I find that it's just too much money invested for the amount of hikers you feed. So we're taking the summer back and just using that mainly for me and for my job and for work on my house. And then the fall, you got 12 weeks for the Sobo season. But then I have the Foothills Trail. The last 5 days of the year, we do what's called end of days hike. That's on the Foothills Trail. And so that, to me, that's a full season. That's a full year. I'm Tim Davis, but Fresh Ground is the guy who runs the Leapfrog Café. He's not sustainable. He can only go so much, and then he has to stop, and Tim Davis has to come over and take a break. So Fresh Ground is my alter ego, and when hikers come out of the woods, I get excited, I get energy. Even when I'm bone tired, I can't put into words what happens, but I love it, and I love taking care of them, and I love feeding them. If that answers your question.
Yeah. It's a great answer. You've been Fresh Ground for about 13 years. In that time, what have you learned about Tim Davis?
He likes to be alone. He needs to be alone. My recharge time it's really important that when I take a break, the last 2 years, I've decided that every week I'm feeding, I take 1 day a week into a motel to get a shower. And when I get that motel, it's not so much to get a shower and get a bed, it's to get away from the hikers. So I will get a motel room in another town away from the trail. So that's the only way I can get a break is to get away. If they see my van, they're automatically going to say, hey, can I get a picture? Hey, I need a ride here. And me, it's in me to help them. So I can't say no. So I have to get away. And then Tim Davis takes over then. And I tell him at the end of the day, when I shut that door, that's my time. Please respect that. I need that to recharge. I have to recharge. I can't. Fresh Ground is a high energy setup output. Tim Davis is let me watch some videos, non-hiking videos, and let me read a book and let me eat some food in my van away from everybody else. Do
you have any short-term goals or plans or any idea of how long you're going to do this?
I'd like to do 20 years. So this makes 13. So 7 more would put me at 68. Might be standing there with a walker handing apples out when you come by at that point. But, yeah, I'd like to leave a 20-year legacy if I could. I always try to encourage people how to do trail magic properly. I'd like to see more people doing hand wash stations. All you need is a 5-gallon bucket, some water, and some soap, and a towel. I think it's important, especially nowadays. You saw how bad the Nora was this year. It's even worse this year. Worst I've seen in a long time. I try to encourage people. Sometimes if you can't hike, I was a hiker, and then my meniscus tore out. So sometimes supporting people can be a lot more rewarding than hiking. Supporting other hikers, and you can get great joy out of that. It's not for everybody. Hiking's not for everybody, but helping somebody out is it's unbelievably rewarding, and it means a lot to them. You got to understand what we do is bigger than us. When you hike, you're going to affect people the rest of your life. It's way bigger than you. But while you're in the middle of it, all you think about is you. But really, what we're doing, trail magic, it's way bigger than us. We're just part of something that's amazing. And if you push through, to be a through hiker, you have to push through the pain and the injuries and the rain and heat and snow and all that. To be a through hiker, you push through. And for me, I'm telling you, when I start down in February, and I step out of that van and it's 20-some degrees, and I'm not happy. I'm not like, hey, I'm like, oh my gosh, let's get that stove so I can get warmed up. I mean, you have to push through the uncomfortableness. One lady down in Georgia one year, she was going to college down in Dahlonega. She said a phrase. She said, this guy fed us and took care of us. He made himself uncomfortable to make us comfortable. And I thought that was a good way to describe a trail angel. To do something uncomfortable to make somebody else comfortable. Turn their days around.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were talking about how much the people that do trail magic get out of it. Because if they're willing to make themselves uncomfortable,
Yeah.
They're getting something out of it for sure. And for people, I know I posted a video last year and I said something about trail magic, and a couple of my buddies had never heard of it before. And I was thinking about it last night, and it's a pretty encompassing. I looked up, I found this definition I like. It said trail magic in the hiking world is thought of as an unexpected act of kindness, generosity, or discovery, or finding exactly what you need when you most least expect it. And when you were talking about, helping, you talking to somebody or just giving somebody a ride into town or giving them an extra hot
Yeah.
dog, it's,
Yeah.
out off the trail, outside the boundaries of the Appalachian Trail, those things seem rather insignificant. But out there, as I'm sure you can attest, they make a huge difference, right?
Also, we got to go back and mention shuttle drivers, hostels. I mean, this community is not just the hikers and trail angels. Hostels are there year round. I admire them. I could never do that. It's not in me to do that. But hostels are so essential. The AT is especially essential. We have shelters, which is unique. Other major trails don't have shelters. So we have that. That makes people tend to be more of a community. But hostels, I can't say enough about hostels. I can't say enough about shuttle. We just lost Sherpa Al. Sherpa Al just passed away down in Franklin, North Carolina. So, and he was a legend, I mean, we have so many people. I mean, Miss Janet, look at what she does. She goes later than me. I never see Miss Janet, but she always provides community, and it's love for each other. It's respect for each other, looking out for each other. A lot of the parents would text me and say, I'm so glad that somebody like you's out there with my kids out there. And I'm like, yep, I kind of take on that role, as Papa Ground, as they call me. They named me that on Florida
second trail name.
Yeah.
Really? You don't need another trail name. Would you? You'd never think of changing your trail name, right?
No, I'm Fresh Ground, but the girls on the Florida Trail call me Papa Ground because I'm always trying to look out for the needs and also encourage them. My job is to take the funding I have and distribute it out where it's needed the most. I mean, it's a simple job, and it's a joyful job. Sometimes it can be a little stressful, but it's worth it. In the end result, it's worth it. When you hiked, it was stressful. There were days that were raining, snowing, hot, ticks, mosquitoes, you name it, right? But at the end of the trip, you're sitting at that sign and you walk down off that mountain. That feeling has never left you, has it?
No, and it never will. It's something I think about every day.
Yeah, it changed you.
Yeah.
So it changed you for the better, and it's bigger than us. It's bigger than us, and you've been a part of something wonderful. And it's not for everybody. I've never been. I never will be a thru hiker, but I tell you what, I sure know how to cook a pancake.
Yeah, that banana one, man, that popped into my head. What, you talk, just a couple more questions. We'll wrap up here. You talked about a change. I mean, I thru hiked 1 year and I do feel it changed me in a lot of ways, maybe not all apparent to people around me in my life, but you're out there every year. Do you feel it, since doing it since 2013, do you feel it's incrementally changed you? Like, do you continue to grow as a person and change as you're out there year after year? Yeah,
you learn, I'm learning to recognize I'm getting better. Like I used to push myself early on too hard, and I'd get mad over something, and then I'd look back and realize that I had failed, because when you get mad, you tear down what you built, right? Because so I was doing too much, so I had to learn to balance and mature. I've made a lot of mistakes out here. I've even gotten in arguments and disagreements with hikers. And the bottom line was, I take that on as a mistake of my own. I want to make sure that if I get upset or angry, then it's my fault. I need to always be able to take what comes to me, take it, or let it fall right off my back, and not let it affect me personally. That's the growth I look in myself more. I've learned to love better. If you want to know the answer, I've learned to love unconditionally. So that's the first thing. But I've learned that taking a motel break once a week is not a bad thing. So I've learned to take care of myself a little bit more. So does that make sense?
It makes 100%. I mean, you got to I've heard people talk about doing the Appalachian Trail or any long hike or long section hike as self-care. And I think that's a good way to talk about it in just a simple couple words. You have to take care of yourself, and you're obviously learning that. Well, look, again, I'm going just for the viewers here and the listeners on the podcast, I'm going to put ways that they can help out, donate in the show notes for sure. I know you got a PayPal and a Venmo account. I'd love to, I'll be hitting that Venmo myself. I think it's a great thing you do out there, a great service, and it's more. My feeling is that it's more than just food, and I think you'd agree with that. And I've got to find you. Obviously, if you ever make it up to Maine, we've definitely got to connect up here. But maybe I plan on at least going to down to Virginia and trail days from here until I can't do it anymore.
Listen,
So
you got Poet and Hippie Chick. I'm gonna be honest with you, their food is top notch. I can't do potatoes as good as them. Poet said my blueberry pancakes are the best, but I think his potatoes are the best. So,
wow, that's
yeah.
a big compliment coming from him and his cairn of blueberry pancakes. But yeah, his potatoes in the morning. I had breakfast up there. He's an amazing guy. They're an amazing couple. They actually
they are.
They'll they let trail maintainers go up there and have free breakfast. So
they are very generous, and that's what the trail. They embrace the community. They don't try to control it or change it or take advantage of it. They just embrace it.
Yeah,
isn't that what we want more than anything else? It's just people that embrace it. You might not be a thru hiker. You might just be a section hiker. You might be a day hiker, but come out and be a part of the community. It's a wonderful thing, Appalachian Trail and the other trails too. But we're Appalachian people, so, we're going to stick with our hometown, right?
Last question, and I've asked this of other people on the show. How do we take that, which we were just talking about, that community and, and the great parts of humanity and bring that off the trail into our regular lives?
I think the greatest lesson you learn is when you carry the weight on your back, then you're responsible for it, right? So I think you should come back and look at your life and decide, do you need all these things? Because I think our society puts a lot of emphasis on things. Well, we know as a hiker, the more things you have, the more responsibility they have. So it's minimalize your things in life. Only have things that you really need or make you happy. So I think minimal living was good. Just make sure that what you're doing is coming either satisfying your heart or it has purpose. Look at what you do in your daily life and see if it's true. I remember I used to hunt and fish a lot, and I remember there was a point in my life I had to look back and say, why did I hunt and fish? And I did it for the wrong motives. I did it for bragging rights. So I kind of stopped doing that. I think I still fish. I fished the other day, but I definitely wasn't bragging. But the point is, you don't need to do all these things. Sometimes society has you doing all these things, and that doesn't give you joy. I think real joy comes from your passions that are in you, and you have to pursue those passions to find contentment. I think that's really important. So for me, it's unique because every time I feed and come back, I got to go through the same process you hikers go through. I have to reintegrate back in society. And then I'm like, oh, I'd rather be back out there because it's very simplistic. And then you come back and you got to deal with life, And out there, all we're worried about is food and where to sleep, right? It's pretty much your two major objectives, right?
Yeah, and that's not an easy thing to do. If you know any thru hikers in your life that, after they come off the trail, that's a real tough thing. Well, look, I mean, I could talk to you all day about the community and I just really, and I know everyone else does, but I just want to say that I'm proud of you, what you do and the man you are, and really appreciative of what you do for the hikers, for sure. And it was great to meet you. And I'm still sad I missed you last year, but I definitely want to meet you in person sometime. And I'm going to be more than happy to donate to your mission that you're on to get out there and feed the hikers. And thanks so much for the time today.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks.